Hey, hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today in a very windy and wet London, and I'm here, because I've been working today, but to round off the working day is something really exciting. One of the most listened to album by me so far in 2024 has been Paul McCartney and Wings' One Hand Clapping, and now I'm gonna go and see the film as well here in King's Cross Everyman Cinema that we have here right behind us somewhere there. And we'll see how it is. So I just came out from the cinema, and boy, what an experience. I have to process a lot of things, think about what I'm going to say about this, because there's so much I want to say about it. So I will catch a train home now to Reading, and for you guys it will only be a matter of seconds before I'm in my home again, and I will tell you all about my experience of One Hand Clapping, the film. Oh yeah, Cloud. Yes, I am back home from watching this One Hand Clapping film, and I try to gather my thoughts a bit around this one. But like I said in the intro here, I was really taken aback how good this was, and I knew that going into it, it would sound really good because I've been listening a lot to One Hand Clapping since it was released. But just seeing it as well, not just hearing it, but seeing these sessions as well, it brought so much joy to me and a big smile on my face. What an experience. But before I continue, I just want to say, if you're anything like me, I hate being spoiled by any movie that I'm going to see. And I know this is not really the regular movie you go out to see. This is a live session filmed in the studio. But still, you might not want to know what's actually included or not included if you're anything like me. So I just want to give you that warning. It's a spoiler warning. If you haven't seen it, go out and see it and then return back to this video. Yes. So I just want to briefly say that I was a very casual McCartney fan at the best earlier. I wasn't really that invested in Paul McCartney. In 1984, I discovered him as a solo artist. I knew him, of course, in the Beatles, but as a solo artist was 1984 with the release of Say, and No More Lonely Nights, of course. That was a big one for me when I ended up buying this one, Give My Regards to Broad Street, where it's included. And he does a couple of iterations here. You all know this if you're Beatles fans or McCartney fans. A couple of Beatles iterations here, which at the time I really loved. I quite like this album still, but we're not going to talk about this. It's just briefly about my McCartney journey here. Then I had a bit of a hiatus until the end of the 80s when Flowers in the Dirt was released. I mainly bought that one because everything had to do with Sanctum Tum and Trevor Horn. I was buying it, and Trevor Horn is partly producing Flowers in the Dirt, so I bought it, and I quite liked a couple of tracks on that one. I have re-evaluated that album since, because listening back to it today, it's even better than I thought it was back then, but I wasn't really in that headspace at the time listening to McCartney. And then through all of the 90s, it was just electronic music for me, basically club music. So it was just a couple of years ago when I was out shopping some records in Sound Machine, actually, here in Reading. And I came across a used copy of Wings at the Speed of Sound. And I was like, well, I don't have anything by Wings, but this one actually includes a couple of classic tracks by Wings. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to pick it up. So I went home and listened to it, and wow. I was really impressed with it. So I was like, yeah, this is really, really good. So I started listening to some more of the solo stuff that Paul did, especially in the 80s with Press and McCartney too, of course. And I was really, he really evolved over time, and he did takes on musical genres that I wasn't aware of. So yeah, so that led me the next time I came across a Wings album to this one, which is behind me, Venus and Mars, and that was even better. And then I was basically down the rabbit hole. Sorry, I was knocking the microphone here. Then I was basically down the rabbit hole, and then led to McCartney 1, Ram, and then, a lot of other records. I don't have everything that McCartney ever did, because I think there's a couple of duds, in my opinion, but most of it I really enjoyed. So earlier this year, I picked up Retro Speedway, and boy, I really loved that one. And then it led to me pre-ordering this one. It's Band on the Run, of course, the anniversary double LP. And yeah, when One Hand Clapping was announced, I got it here, I pre-ordered it because this is recorded in 1974. Fresh on the heels of Band on the Run. It's an era which I really love with Paul McCartney and Wings. So this was a no-brainer for me. I was like, I had no clue what One Hand Clapping was, by the way, so I had to read up on it. It arrived and I listened to it and I was like, yeah, it sounds good. And then from second listening, oh, this is brilliant. And it just kept going from there. I kept listening and listening to it. I think it's such a good live album. And I call it a live album. I know they went into the studio, but they all played it live. There's no overdubs in this one. They all play it live. They did different takes to my knowledge around this, because that's what you usually do when you go into studio, even if it's live. You do a couple of different takes, and what I assume we got on this double LP this year is the best, what they consider the best outtakes of each song. And like I said, love this one. One of the most listened to albums so far this year. So along with this one, when this one came out, a lot of people were saying, but where is the film? Because the whole thing with this is one of the many McCartney projects where he said, yeah, let's do this. Let's go into the studio and play live and record the whole thing. And not only that, we're going to bring in a film crew to film the whole thing. So he had a fellow called David Litchfield come in with a crew and film these sessions. Late in 1974 this is, and David Litchfield, to my knowledge, mainly done TV up to this point, TV productions. So, but he was hired, they filmed this, and I think it was meant to be released in 1975, but it never happened. For some reason it was shelved. Over the years, some footage and even audio has been leaked from these sessions. So bootlegs have been created, and there's probably a videotape or two circulating around out there with One Hand Clapping sessions. But this was all new to me. So this year, when this arrived, I had to read up on it, and I learned the backstory around this. But I'm no authority on either this or McCartney, so I can't tell you every single granular detail about this recording, other than I love it. I think it's really good. The whole thing with this one, before I move into the next segment here, is that it was scrapped, like I said. But I think the whole point with this one, hiring a TV director, hiring a TV crew or film crew doing this, the thought behind this, I think it was selling it to TV channels to get them to buy this. And I think the pamphlet that we got with this reissue, this one, some called it a poster. I don't think it's really a poster. We do get some credits here for the remastering and the other people's involved. But I think these sections with the picture of the band members here in the sessions, it was meant to be an information to the TV stations to say, listen, this is what One Hand Clapping is all about. Are you interested in perhaps buying this to show on your channel or whatever? I think that was the case for this one. And I mentioned this one when I first talked about One Hand Clapping in one of my earlier episodes here. But I might be wrong. That's just my take on this, but I think that was the whole thing with one hand clapping. It was supposed to be sold to TV stations, but for one reason or the other, it was scrapped. So when it was finally announced not long ago that it's going to be the film, that is One Hand Clapping, it's going to be in a limited run in cinemas, I went out and booked a ticket, and now I'm fresh out of watching this. So let's first start out with the picture quality, because when I was reading about this, and I also said just recently here about David Litchfield being a TV director mainly, he utilized TV cameras. He recorded everything on magnetic tapes, which is basically what we call videotapes, right? And it's a difficult medium because it's very sensitive. It's magnetic tape, and over time, it doesn't really look good, does it? It's got that 4:3 aspect ratio. It's meant to be shown on television and not to be blown up on a big screen like I just saw it. But I think what they had to work with, considering the circumstances, they did a pretty decent job with blowing this one up. It still looks TV quality blown up, I would say, but they tried their best to adjust everything. But you will still get the grain from the TV cameras, if we can call it grain, and you got a lot of direct lights bleeding over into each other, so sometimes it turns a bit blue, greenish, and sometimes red. It's just those artifacts, especially with TV cameras back in the 1970s. And but yeah, it was just the whole, I don't care too much about the quality, because I knew that going into it wouldn't be too great. It doesn't matter how much they treat this TV picture, it's just going to be, you're just going to reach a level where, yeah, we can't do anymore. But it was just that experience, listening to this and seeing it at the same time, the passion, the joy they had going into these sessions. And it wasn't only Wings at this point. When I refer to Wings, what they used on Band on the Run, because that's Paul McCartney, Linda McCartney, and Denny Lane. That's it. They had no drummer or an extra guitarist or bassist in this band. It was just the three of them, and Paul played the drums on Band on the Run. So going into these one-hand clapping sessions, he had to recruit some additional personnel. So we had Jeff Britton, I'm going to go back to him later on. He's on drums, brilliant bloke. And Jimmy McCullough, equally brilliant on guitar. And all of them are doing backing vocals as well, of course. And then on top of that, they also brought in, for a couple of songs, a full orchestra as well, which is brilliant, and a brass band. And I think his name is Howie Casey on saxophone. And I'm going to come back to that one. Yeah, so that was the setup for this. And like I said, David Litchfield filmed it all. It's a bit clunky when it comes to the filming. It's really not what I would consider a brilliant documentary or behind the scenes glimpse of things or whatever. But at least, yeah, we got these moving pictures, as it was, to the music. And that's, I'm more than pleased with that. We got to see this brilliant one-hand clapping sessions, not just only hearing them, seeing them as well. But now, let's go in. We already talked about the picture quality. It is what it is. I'm just glad that we got it. Now to the sound of it. I will go into a couple of numbers here as well and talk about them. And I won't be really granular. I won't talk about every single song that we hear in this movie. But the sound of this one, it was surround sound. So between the songs, you get this studio chatter between the control room and the members. And that's from the film itself, I would say. But when the songs kicks in, it's probably from the remaster that we got this year, because the sound is perfect, in my opinion. And the surround mix that goes with this one was really, really good, I would say. And if I'm not wrong, I think this one was released digitally, so you could buy it, download it along with this release. I think you can still do that. But I don't have a surround sound in my home, so I never got to experience that. But sitting here in the cinema and listening to it, I was like, wow, what a mix. In a lot of numbers, Linda is on the Moog synthesizer. I think it's a mini Moog, but I might be wrong. But anyhow, that one is usually placed in either the right channel or the left channel. And you got some bass parts as well spread out, and some sounds are just wandering around you. And in the case of where you have like a shaker going on, you got that static in one of the channels, and that really broadened the sound. And that's the whole point, of course, with surround. But sometimes it's very clunky the way it's done. In some cases, I heard some really bad surround mixes throughout the years. But this one was really, really good. I was really impressed what they done with that one. But perhaps you already heard that, but it's just my take on the sound mix. It was really, really good. And a couple of numbers that really blew me away. One of the first ones we hear is Jet. And I remember when I talked about this one, when I first got it, that I said that I think one of the weaker tracks on this one was Jet, because I think it's a brilliant track in its original on Band on the Run. But it doesn't got that punch that it needs. It's still punchy, but it needs to be a bit punchier. That was my whole point with this. But hearing it here in the film, I thought it was so great. It got just the right amount of punch, as I call it, in lack of better words. So I'm not sure if this was an alternate take from what we actually got here on the album. And that also goes with some other track. I can't really remember that. I should have noted it down, but I didn't have time. I was just so amazed looking at this one, so I didn't have time to write anything down. But yeah, Jet stood out to me to be a different take. But it might be the same take. It was just me being overwhelmed with this big sound, surround sound or whatever, and the pictures to go along with that, of course. That just blew me away. Yeah. And My Love, of course, one of my favorites from Red Rose Speedway. The One Hand Clapping Session version is probably a favorite of mine. And Soily, a really rocking track that if I heard it back in the day, I say back in the day, when I was younger, I would probably dismiss it like, oh, it's rock crap. But I really got to appreciate more rock music throughout the years, as you might know if you have followed my channel. And this one really, really rocks. It's a really good rock track by Paul McCartney. And I think it was meant to be on Red Rose Speedway in the first place. But the only version that I heard of Soily so far was from Wings Over America, the live album. But this studio version of Soily is, yeah, it's outstanding. I just want to say that. And we also get Band on the Run, of course. That's where I really got a bit of a tear in my eye. I was so overwhelmed by it. It's one of my favorite songs by Paul McCartney and Wings. And that rendition they do in this One Hand Clapping Session, it's so good. And I think it was just seeing them and hearing them as well. Once again, I'm raving about this, but I think that combination just tops it all off. I mean, this one is great just listening to it, but just seeing it as well, whoa, yeah. So what you get here in the film is basically side 1 and side 2 of this double album. I don't think we get any of the tracks from side 3 or 4. I might have to come back on that one when I gathered my thoughts even more around this, but I think that's what we get, because it's not a very long movie, this one. It's just over an hour long, and it's not a lot of the songs that we hear in full. Some of them are playing in the background while we hear audio interviews with some of the band members giving their thoughts around being in the band and doing these sessions and so forth and so on. So yeah, It doesn't distract at all because I was expecting it to be quite different from this one. I wasn't expecting to hear all of these tracks, but you might have thought they did some additional stuff as well. They must have been some outtakes from. I was just hoping here. Wildlife, for example. That is my favorite version of Wildlife is on this album, for example. Yeah, so we get a lot of chopped up songs here with interweaved with interviews and all that, but it's just great. And then the orchestra arrives, and we know this is going to lead into Live and Let Die, which is a brilliant version. Might have been the best version, even better than the studio original version recorded for the James Bond movie. And then we have the brass section of things as well. I think his name, like I said, was Howie Casey on saxophone in Bluebird. He does this sax solo, and it is such a good sax solo, and we get to see him do this at least one of the takes of this one, and Paul is standing there beside him just trying to yeah, that's right, yeah, just gesturing to him while he's playing, and it's such a great one. What a great saxophone player that was. And one bloke that really stood out to me was on drums, Jeff Britton. Never seen him perform before, but what a power pack he was. And I think Paul refers to him in one of these audio interview segments like a rock and roll drummer, or if he mentioned that in the intro of the movie. Anyhow, he's really a rock and roll drummer. He's got these cool sunglasses on at sometimes, and most of the time he wears these karate suits, does punches in the air between the sessions, karate kicks. He is really a fun bloke and a brilliant drummer, I have to say. He does give different dimensions to some of these tracks when you compare them to the original studio recordings. Really love that. And Jimmy McCullough, good on guitar. Dan Elaine, as usual, really good. Linda, good on the synthesizer and backing vocals. I just love the whole enthusiasm of this. But the one track that really blew me away, just seeing it on the record, it sounds great. I think it's even better than on the Band on the Run album, and that's 1985. What a track. Like I said, it's great on Band on Run, but when I heard it on One Hand Clapping Sessions, I was like, wow, this is the ultimate take of this track. The energy of 1985 they give is just wow. And seeing this, it's a bit of a weird angle to things here, because it's a bit clunky when it comes to the filming. I probably said this before, but it starts out with Paul on the piano, just him doing the intro of the song, and then it goes over to, in the second part of the song, the whole band. It all kicks loose. And you got this fixed camera on Paul, so they place the camera here underneath him, and he sings down to the camera, and that's basically the whole thing through the rest of the song. Paul just singing, but it gives a lot of more energy to the thing. I know it sounds really weird, but I was so delighted to see this one. It brought a big smile on my face just seeing Paul there just strutting around with his microphone, and there was such an energy to those that picture or those pictures. Just a static camera basically, and I love that one. Yeah, so yeah, I could mention even more here, but these are the things that I had on top of my head. I just want to give you my spontaneous reaction to this one. It's a really great one. Go out and see it if you can. And when it comes to the release of this one, limited run in cinemas, I would expect this to be on Blu-ray around Christmas and even DVD, or one of the formats at least. Oh, I'm hoping. Well, it wasn't finished there, because once the end credits roll, Paul comes in again. 2024 Paul did I mention this one, by the way? When the whole thing starts, the whole one hand clapping session, we get 2024 Paul, a newly recorded segment with him saying, oh, hey, welcome to see one hand clapping. And he gives some of the background reminiscing around these sessions and how great they were. And I just have to agree. Paul is on top here. His voice is top notch and all that. But I already said that, talking about one hand clapping in that episode that I did. Anyhow, so after one hand clapping finish, we had the end credits rolled. He comes in again. 2024 Paul comes in and say, please don't leave. We have some other things for you. And he started talking about during these sessions, he also had this idea of going out to a section of the Abbey Road, the backyard section. He has some greenery there. To just mic up an acoustic guitar and a mic for his voice, and that's what they did, and these became the backyard sessions, or just the backyard as it was called, this short movie. And that's basically what you got if you ordered this one hand clapping album earlier this year along with the 7-inch single, because they had that option as well where you can get 7-inch single, where he does Blackpool, Blackbird, 20 Flight Rock, and Peggy Sue on this one. So that's basically what you got from the backyard film as well. But he doesn't, we never get to see Blackbird. He does Blackpool, and he does 20 Flight Rock and Peggy Sue. And there was another one that I don't think it's included on this one. Was it Chuck Berry one? I don't really recall it because I was so overwhelmed. And like I said, it's just me spontaneously reacting to this one. But yeah, it was nice to hear these. These are not one of my favorites, really, going back to Buddy Holly songs and old things like that. But just to see the joy in Paul's face performing these ones, it was worth everything to me. Just see that. It was brilliant. It was really, really great. But it's just a short film. And I just noticed at the end of it, it had 1976 copyright on that one. So everything from one hand clapping to the backyard was prepared and then just shelved. Really, really strange. But at least we got it here in 2024. There was another thing I wrote. Oh yeah, I wrote something down actually afterwards. Because when one hand clapping finished and Paul comes in and say, hey, listen, sit down in his backyard, come in, and yeah. He says, well, I just sat there with the guitar doing this, and then I did this. And he said, oh, I don't know why I did this. And then, yeah. And I think it just came to me when he said it. Years ago, I listened to a couple of podcasts discussing that conspiracy theory that Paul is dead, you know, and that he was replaced at some point with someone else who wasn't the original Paul. And one, if I don't misremembering things here, and you might have to correct me down in the comments if I got this wrong, but I think that Paul is originally left-handed. I think that's it, right? But whoever replaced him was actually right-handed, and he had to try to learn the guitar left-handed, or the bass, sorry. I think it was just my interpretation, but that was like Paul saying, oh, I don't know why I did this, like giving us a bit of a wink. If you get it, you get it, that kind of thing. So, but I might read too much into this, but I thought it was really, really funny. Yeah, so that has to round things off. I want to know what you think. Have you seen it yet? Are you going to see it in the near future in the cinema near you? Please let me know. And boy, if I got anything wrong here, because like I said, I'm not an authority of either McCartney or Wings here. I'm still a novice in this. I just have a passion for this music. Please correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments as well. Or if you want to put any other comments relating to this, please do that as well. But for now, I want to thank you for watching yet another episode from my YouTube channel. And until next time, you all take care of yourself. And as usual, adieu.